Welcome to our instructional videos for this week. We'll be working, as you see in front of you, with charts, tables, and graphs and learning to not only gather the data but to display the data in a way that gathers people's attention in. So, why use these resources to organize data? Well, you see down there are various things that it can do for you if you do stop and think about it. Present the data in a way that's easy for people to understand. Graphical presentations always get people's attention very easily. You convert that normal historical information into something that many different people understand, data, number formats, and you can use those to support your arguments, whether it's a historical argument or there's a scientific one or maybe even a literary analysis one. You can use this data to support your arguments. And to be honest with you, if you have data tables and graphs, it does make your paper, your presentation, your website, whatever it is you're producing, much more engaging. So, how do you do this? Well, your imagination is your guide. Your imagination. You can use various types of programs. Google Docs spreadsheet, a Word table, Excel, various types of other tools, hyperlinks to additional data. You just, again, let your imagination be what guides you. But remember, your point is you're always trying to educate people and get their attention. What do you need first? Well, yes, data. And you see a graphic here that represents various types of data. But if you don't organize it some way, it can be quite confusing. So, other topics that could be researched and graphed. You see, it's not just limited to historical topics. It's limited to many, many different types of things. What is our purpose in this first video? Number one, to show you how to structure a spreadsheet to be used for gathering data. Number two, to demonstrate how to populate that spreadsheet with data and introduce you to a very interesting geographic information system, otherwise known as GIS, that displays data from the U.S. Census. So with no further ado, let's go get to work. And here is our tool. This is the GISforHistory website, but before we go into this spot, we're going to go all the way back out because this is the main website. We're going to view the lesson plans because you can go to this website for whatever historical purpose you might have. And then you're going to scroll down till you find the immigration under construction. Now, we at first are going to work on populating this spreadsheet with data. And as you see here, we're going to be looking at Italian immigration from 1890 to 1930 in three cities, three major industrial cities: Chicago, Detroit, and Pittsburgh. So that means we've got to make it easy on us, have those three spots accessible on the map. So we go to the map, and we zoom in. We move the map over. You can see we have Chicago here. That's Cook County. Detroit here. That's Wayne County. And Pittsburgh here. I believe that's Allegheny County. But it's hard to get our little finger inside there, so we're going to zoom in again. And now we have all three of them again. Chicago and Cook County, Detroit and Wayne County, and Pittsburgh and, yes, Allegheny County. So we're going to begin gathering data. And we go back and we click. We're going to start with Chicago. And we go back to the spreadsheet to remind ourselves what data are we going to gather. Let's just on Italian immigration in Chicago from 1890 to 1900. So we're going to go back to 1890. And up here on this pull-down menu, right now we're set on total population. But we're going to move that to place of birth, Italy. And we can see that in 1890 there were 5,734 Italian immigrants registered on the U.S. Census. So we come back to the spreadsheet. 5734. It doesn't take any comments, so you just type in the raw number. Now we go back and we go 1900, 16915. So go back to the spreadsheet, 16915. Go back here. I know it's tedious, but that's what investigation with primary sources is like. And make no mistake about it, you are using this census data working with primary sources. It's 1910, 49,747, 49,747, 1920, 66,238, 1930, 84,531. So now we've got all of our data for Chicago. Now we're going to go to Detroit. And Detroit is this county right here. I've researched it, so I know this. Wayne County. Remember, we have to go back. What was our starting point? 1890. So we'll see, do they have any data for 1890 there? And the answer is yes. There are 379 people from Italy living there. Or at least those that answered the U.S. Census. In 1900, it was 937. And 1910 is what we want next. 6,125. Man, that's a big jump. 6,125. I wonder what industry is starting to pick up around about this time. 1920. 17,805. Wow. 17,805. Big jump. I wonder what it is in 1930. 31,572. 31,572. Just looking at that raw data, it jumps in the space of 40 years from 379 Italian immigrants living in Detroit to 31,572, which raises the question, what historical implications does that have? What does that point to? But without belaboring the point any further, let's go to immigration and Allegheny County. So we're going to jump back. Again, we've got to go to what year? 1890. So we jump back to 1890. And in 1890, in the area of Pittsburgh, 3,498 Italian immigrants living in that county. Now, there were some nearby, but we're just focusing for purposes of our exercise here on just that one county. 1900, 11,287. 1910, 26,914. 1920. It jumped us from one county to the other. Let's see if we can get back into Allegheny. 29,122. You got to be careful for that, because we didn't move our cursor, but sometimes the map jumps you. So you got to make sure that if you're gathering information on one county, that the map lets you stay in that county. Now going to 1930, 34,039. 34,039. So now we have all the information we need, which we're going to use video 2 to make a video of this. But what we're going to do right now is we're going to go and look at, since this is a line graph, we're going to make a column graph, which is otherwise known as a bar graph, but this is going to be used for comparative purposes. And you see, this is just focusing on the population of Chicago in these years for these three immigrant groups. So we're going to make a graph that allows us to compare the growth rate of the different cities, or different Italian, Irish, and Polish immigrant populations. So let's go back to Chicago. And again, we're starting in 1870. So go back to 1870. And we're going to start with Italian immigrants. So here we are with Italian immigrants, and we're not getting any data. Now, this could mean that when they took the census data, there was no information given on those immigrants. Now, we can test to see whether a census did register for that area by going to total population, and it did. You can see in 1870, there were 349,966 people total living in Chicago. So it's not that we don't have census data. We just don't have any for Italians. So since we're focusing on Italians for the purpose of this graph, what number do we have to put in our chart? 0. Then we'll move to 1880. And once again, no data on Italian immigrants. We put in 0. 1890. Now we start to get data, 5,734. 5734. That might tell you something about when the main industry of Chicago started to explode more and more in size. 1900, 16,915. 1910, 49,747. And 1920, 66,238. Now, let's go and look at the data for people of Irish descent, those that came from Ireland. So again, we'll jump back to 1870, go to place of birth, Ireland, and in 1870 there were 43,415 people from Ireland living there in Chicago, 43,415. This is, of course, a Google Spreadsheet. Very useful, flexible tool that we're using, which is what you will use in your assignment. 1880, for some reason we don't have any data, so we'll go back and we'll put in a 0. That doesn't mean they all moved out, it just means that for some reason it didn't register. 1890, they call that a statistical aberration. 1890, 72,448. 72,448. Sometimes census data gets destroyed in one way or another. In fact, in 1890, around that time period, there's a big fire, so those records from the 1880 census may have been destroyed. So 1900, 76,393. Growing, but not all that much in 10 years' time. 1910, going down a little bit, 68,688. And in 1920, 59,738. So that might be a historical thing you could research when you're working on your PhD in history one day. Why did Irish immigration to Chicago drop in those years? So let's go see, do we have any data for people from Poland? 1870, not Ireland, place of birth, Poland. And the answer is no. But they're nearby. In what state is this? Yes, Indiana. So we put in a 0. And we go to 1880. And another 0. We go to 1890. 25,336. We go to 1900, no data again. 1910, no data. And 1920, 148,268. Now the question this would raise in my mind is, of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 decades, we only have figures for Polish immigration for 2 of those decades, which might make you think, I wonder if I even want to include data on people from Poland in this little project that I'm doing. And you might decide no, But then again, you might decide that you could make a point to say from 1890 to 1920, a space of roughly 30 years, Polish immigration increased by a substantial amount. It went up 1, 2, 3, 4, about 5 times or so, a little bit more than that. So that could be statistically significant. Then you just have to think, exactly will that, having something that has that many zeros in it, fit your purpose. But what we're going to do in the next video that will be inserted in your location page on your Blackboard page below this one is going to be actually making graphs with these two spreadsheets we just constructed. So we'll see you then. Goodbye.